Derozan is going to the Sacramento Kings. We have some more breaking news, and that is that Demar Derozan will go to the Sacramento Kings on a sign and trade. Now, this had been rumored and reported for a few days now, and the reports were basically that it's going to happen. It was just a matter of time. So I'm not shocked just because I was prepared. But Demar Derozan on the Kings itself is actually shocking. I don't know, I know the reports even before the last few days were that the Kings were targeting him, as well as the Lakers, of course, and the Miami Heat as well. I don't know. I just can't picture Derozan being on the Kings. It is an awesome, awesome deal for the Sacramento Kings. Because if you don't know what the trade actually ended up being, it's a 3-year, $74 million deal in a sign and trade with Chicago. And so Chicago is getting a $17.6 million trade exception, which they can use. So we'll talk about that later. But so they didn't take any salary back. So they got a trade exception and they got what they wanted and then picks. And I understand 3 second-round picks isn't like the grandest package we've ever seen, but it's better than getting nothing. And then the trade exception, like I said, that's a pretty big deal. Now to me, I understand them not wanting to take salary back, but at the same time, I don't know who they would be trading for with that trade exception, because I feel I guess it just depends who's available. Because I just feel like someone who's making that kind of money is more likely maybe a win now type of player. And if they're rebuilding, I don't know who they're going to try to trade for with that money. But regardless, they got the money, they'll figure it out. Let me just add on to what I said, and then we'll really dive into Derozan on the Kings. But I just want to say one more thing, and that is I just said that $17 million is probably more of a win now type of player because players on their rookie contract don't make that much money. So it would be someone who's already on their second contract or whatever. It could be a younger player who is still in, kind of rebuild mode. But I just feel like someone who's making that kind of money and is in that young of a stage isn't as likely to be traded, but whatever. They'll figure it out. I just wanted to clarify. For the Kings, what a steal. All they had to give up was 3 second-round picks, which, again, it's only 3 second-round picks. And then Harrison Barnes went to the Spurs. And while Harrison Barnes has been a solid NBA, player in his career, was from Golden State, won a ring there. Obviously, he played on Dallas. He played on the Kings, obviously. I'm trying to remember if he was somewhere else as well. I'm pretty sure he was on Dallas. But regardless, been a few places, solid player, does a bunch of things. But Derozan, we're talking about Derozan here. Someone who is still playing at an all-star caliber, level. He fits perfectly on this team. It's a perfect match. He can just replace Harrison Barnes at the 3. Personally, I still think, and I guess, teams don't feel that way anymore, and maybe Derozan likes to play the 3 better. But when he was on the Raptors, he was playing the 2. It was Kyle Lowry at the 1 and him at the 2. I don't know which is more of his natural position at this point because he moves around. He even played some 4 with Chicago at some point, I believe. So he can play multiple positions. I feel like he should still be at the 2 though. I don't know. I just felt like we saw some of the best Derozan when he played at the 2. But regardless, he could play multiple positions. I'm not trying to put him in a box. I'm just saying. I also don't think he would play the 2 on the Kings if he's in the starting lineup, which he obviously will be, because Kevin Huerter, I believe, is still going to start at the 2. So you can't move Kevin Huerter to the 3. I guess you could, but I don't think that makes more sense than Derozan at the 3. This is a great fit because it gives them another go-to scorer when De'Aaron Fox doesn't have it going or something. This is the perfect person to put alongside De'Aaron Fox. And I don't know if their mentality is exactly the same because I don't know either of them. But based on, what I've seen from both players, they kind of seem to have similar temperament. They both seem like calm, level-headed players. Obviously, when you're on the court, they're not calm. Most players are not calm when they're on the court. I'm saying in general, though, outside of being in a game, they seem to have the same temperament. So I feel like they will mesh well together. So this is a huge W for the Kings, especially because last year was a disappointing year compared to the year before. And they had to do something. They couldn't keep the roster as it was. like, you know, teams in the West got better. Obviously, OKC is looking crazy right now on paper. And then you still have a bunch of other teams in the West. They couldn't stand still. Like, there was definitely a chance, if they kept the roster as it was, that they didn't even make the playoffs. And to be honest, last year, I don't think I had them making the playoffs. I think I had them either as the 8th seed and getting knocked out, or as the 9th seed and getting knocked out in the play-in tournament. Something like that. I had them as the 8th seed, or it was something. I think I had them as like the 9th seed, but I always do 1 through 8. So like I don't talk about the 9 and 10, even though technically it counts now because the play-in tournament. I still just do 1 through 8 when I give my predictions. Because I felt like, and it's not personal to them, of course, but it just seemed to me like the next year was not going to be as good. And although I was wrong that they wouldn't make the playoffs, it definitely ended pretty quickly. So I was half right, half wrong. I just didn't see that roster as it was going to a championship. I felt like they need to make moves. So now that they did, this definitely, I think, solidifies them, as long as everybody stays healthy, of course. I think this solidifies them as being a top 8 team. Where they end up, I gotta, again, see what everybody else does in the offseason, what everybody's roster looks like. But right now, I think they're a top 8 team by adding Derozan. And then for the Spurs, like, they have so much money, they have so much cap space because they have a lot of young players and stuff like that. I don't know. I have to look what their cap space is, but they obviously had room, of course. So they're not like putting themselves over the edge by getting Harrison Barnes on their roster. And again, solid player. He obviously does not fit the timeline. They're not bringing him in to win a championship next year. The Spurs also got Chris Duarte, who is a younger player. So maybe they just really wanted Chris Duarte in the deal. And so maybe that's why the Spurs were like, okay, maybe they see, like, Chris Duarte, by the way, when he did play, because he played on the Kings, but I'm pretty sure he played on Indiana before that. I'm trying to remember. But I remember a bunch of really good games from him throughout his, early career. Like, I remember a bunch of games and being like, this guy's really good. Like, I'm not saying he's an all-star, but I'm just saying, like, potential. He has good potential. So the Spurs, they always know how to pick out those potential players. So maybe they saw Chris Duarte and they were like, put him in the deal. We'll take the salary. Again, that doesn't mean Harrison Barnes is a bad player, but he's not fitting the timeline. Like, we all know this. So maybe Chris Duarte is about to develop. Like, watch out for Chris Duarte. He's with the Spurs. They develop players very well. So I guess it's to be determined for the Spurs. I don't know if this was the best deal for them. I don't think it's a bad deal. I just think it's kind of like a wash. Like, I don't think it does. And I don't think it makes them worse, but I don't think it makes them that much better. But to be fair, I'm going to take back what I just said slightly, because I just thought about it. Harrison Barnes is a veteran and he is an NBA champion. And they brought in Chris Paul, who is not an NBA champion, but he is like a super savvy veteran. We know, point guard, like pass first, floor general, all those things. So they brought in now 2 players like that. And I just, rethought about what I said. And they actually might be bringing in Harrison Barnes because he is a veteran player who is available, who has had success in his career. And so he can help teach, some of the younger guys on the roster. So I will amend my point because he may be awesome in the locker room. Like, he might be really good for these young guys. So I will give them a point there because I didn't think about it till after I said what I said. But at the same time, like, they're not winning a championship by adding Harrison Barnes, of course. That's, again, no shade at Harrison Barnes. I'm just saying the roster currently constructed is not a championship roster. But congratulations to the Kings. What a steal.